Okay, let's start with a question that might make you squirm a little. What does your bank account say about your soul? I know, it's a tough one, but according to this really powerful devotional text we're digging into, it's a question Jesus asked all the time. So let's dive into his, let's be honest, pretty challenging teachings on wealth, justice, and what's really going on inside the human heart.
And this text, it doesn't waste any time. It hits you with this really provocative idea right up front. For Jesus, your money isn't just a tool, it's a mirror. It gives you this brutally honest look at who we really are, way down deep.
So the devotional we're looking at really zeroes in on the Gospel of Luke, and that's where Jesus confronts a very specific kind of wealth. We're not just talking about the kind that buys bigger houses, but the kind that builds these invisible walls, the kind that blinds us to other people's suffering and just makes our hearts go cold. All right, so let's jump into the first of three really powerful lessons from this text. It starts with a scene that's probably pretty familiar to all of us, and it gets right to the heart of what it means to truly see the people around us.
I mean, you can just feel the tension in this scene, can't you? Picture it. This woman, her hands are shaking, she's carefully counting out every single coin. And then behind her, you've got this guy in a fancy suit, and his wealth seems to have bought him a whole lot of impatience, but not a lot of compassion. In that single moment, the world looks at her and sees an obstacle, and looks at him and sees someone important. But this is where Jesus just flips that whole value system completely on its head. And the devotional is really clear about this. This isn't about saying wealth is evil, period. Not at all. It's a sharp, pointed critique of the arrogance, that sense of entitlement, and the sheer indifference that wealth can so often produce. And that brings us to the real challenge of this first lesson. It takes that story from the grocery store and turns it into a direct, really personal question for you and me. The point isn't to judge the guy in the suit. The point is to ask ourselves, who are we in that line? Okay, so this whole idea of really seeing people, it leads us right into our second lesson. And this one uses a really powerful metaphor to ask a simple question. What are we actually building with our resources? Are we building bigger barns for ourselves or bigger tables for everyone else?
I mean, get this. The devotional shares this story about a man who basically lived out this parable literally. He spent his whole life filling up not one, but three huge storage barns with stuff, unopened boxes of things he never even used. And when he died, that massive hoard wasn't some kind of legacy or celebration. It was just a really sad monument to a life spent just accumulating. But then, on the flip side, the material contrasts those big, empty barns with a story of a grandmother's pantry. Now, her pantry was always full, but it was never a private hoard. It was a community resource. Her whole life wasn't about saying, hey, look what I own. It was about saying, look what God can do. Look what we can share. And that right there gets to the absolute heart of what it means to be rich toward God. In this way of thinking, God isn't impressed by how much stuff we can pile up in our barns. No. He's moved by our generosity, by the size of our tables. Okay, this brings us to our third and final lesson. And this one explores what might be the most subtle and maybe the most dangerous aspect of wealth, what this text calls the sin of indifference. It's all about who we fail to see, even when they are literally right at our gate. Now, this is such a critical point, you guys. In the famous parable, the rich man isn't actually cruel to Lazarus, the poor man at his gate. He doesn't abuse him or yell at him. He just ignores him. He acts like he doesn't even exist. And for Jesus, that was enough. That act of just stepping over someone in need, that was a profound moral failure. And the text connects this ancient story to something super modern and relatable. There's the story of a church that made what seemed like a practical decision. They removed a bench where a homeless man used to sleep. But after reading this very passage, they had this moment of realization. Their church steps had become the rich man's gate. So what did they do? They didn't just put the bench back. They bought a new one and put cushions on it. They turned a place of exclusion into a place of intentional welcome. And just like that, the lesson turns right back to us. Every single day, we have a Lazarus at our own gate. It could be a person, a cause we see online, a cry for justice in our community. And the choice really is simple, but it's also incredibly profound. Do we step over them, or do we pull up a chair and sit beside them? So when you put these three lessons together, right, seeing the ignored, building bigger tables, and refusing to step over people in need, it becomes clear they aren't just a list of rules. They're actually an invitation into a completely different kind of economy, a whole different way of thinking about wealth, success, and what really truly matters.
Now, let's be super clear on this point. The argument isn't that Jesus is against money, full stop. He's against what this text calls exploitative wealth. And what is that? Well, it's any wealth, it doesn't matter if it's big or small, that either comes from or leads to hoarding, harming others, neglecting needs, or just plain blinding us to what's really going on in the world. And this is the alternative that's presented, a kingdom economy. It's a total flip of what we're used to. Instead of a world driven by greed and just accumulating more stuff, it's about generosity. Instead of bigger barns, it's bigger tables. Instead of ignoring people, it's about really seeing them. It's about serving God, not money. You know, when you boil it all down, the devotional uses this simple but really beautiful phrase to describe it all. This whole different way of living, this kingdom economy. It's not just some abstract idea or a bunch of rules. It's what love looks like with skin on. It's tangible, it's real, and it actually makes a difference in the world.
And so we have to end right here with this one final powerful question. It's a question that echoes from a story that's 2,000 years old, but it lands right in our laps today. It's a challenge, really. A challenge to look around at our homes, our jobs, our neighborhoods, and just ask ourselves, who is the Lazarus at my gate?